Hey there, CPO here, and welcome to what is pretty much the end of the installation phase for the Omega Excalibur alarm system with remote start. Now, we're not completely done because I've got a couple of optional sensors I'm going to install later on, but we are to the point where we have the base functionality ready to go. We're doing it right now. So this video is really about buttoning things up and then starting the basic configuration. We're gonna program the blade to the vehicle and make sure it's got the right firmware settings for that. That's an automagical process, which simplifies things a lot. And then vehicle learn mode, which is the shortcut of the century when it comes to security system programming. All right, so I'm ready to actually start putting the brain in the system. So the first thing I need to do to prep the brain is put in the blade. So the cartridge is gonna slide in and then you're good to go there. I have one more sensor I haven't installed, and that's this proximity sensor. I'm gonna install that after I get the basic functionality in, but I wanna go ahead and plug in the cable so I don't have to pull that all apart. I'm gonna pretend like it's being plugged in when it's actually just gonna be a blank cable. And I'm gonna tape this up nicely real quick. All right, there we go. I got it all nice and taped up to be tidy. I may or may not have to extend this whenever I actually install the sensor, but I'll figure that out later. But I'm gonna go ahead and plug it into one of these analog ports. And the other sensor, the shock sensor, which I also taped up, it's already installed. We're going to plug that into the other analog port. Now, I've got to still button these wires up, but for now, I'm just going to start plugging things in so that I can get some testing done. So first is going to be the antenna, then my 18-pin harness, which now has all said and done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wires in it. Now I'm going to plug in the back side of my harness that goes to the ignition. And then the last one I'm going to plug in is this one, and that one's got power. So now the unit is powered. And I just heard it click. I am going to go ahead and plug in my battery backup while I'm here, because that's going to be critical when I start looking at where I'm going to finally position this. All right, so I've plugged in the Excalibur and I'm getting a red flashing light from the blade. That's telling me it still needs to be programmed to my vehicle. So this is a pretty easy process and actually is one of the things that makes this really cool, because what it's going to do is automatically set up for my vehicle. I'm going to put my key in the ignition. I'm going to turn on the ignition, and now I'm flashing blue. I'm going to take the key out of the ignition and just hit unlock. Now I have a solid blue, and that tells me that the blade has been programmed to match my vehicle. That's it. That's all I had to do. And now the hard part of the install is done. And check this out. That's pretty awesome. So I've got a little bit of programming to do here to get creature comforts. I do want to do my vehicle learn mode real quick for the remote start, so that is set up, and that's a one-time thing. It's going to set up the vehicle for everything it needs to properly manage the remote start capability. But for now, what I really need to do is get this all tidied up and that blade unit installed in its final resting place inside of there. So I'm going to work on that. Then we'll deal with the rest of setup and all of that good stuff here soon. All right, I've got my brain zip tied down. I've got the bundle of wires sort of pressed down on top. It's not perfectly clean. I've got to get back in here later, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it for now. And then this panel will come back in, and then we'll be able to restore these bolts. And then after that, we're good to go. All right, so now that the blade has been programmed to identify my vehicle and the basics of how it works, I want to do vehicle learn mode, which will help set up the remote start function. This is going to detect a lot of stuff automatically that most people would normally have to manually set up. This is going to make things much, much easier. So I'm just going to follow the instructions here in the guide. I'm going to turn the ignition key on, but not start. So now I'm going to activate the remote start on the transmitter, and I do that by pressing the start button twice within 5 seconds. Okay, so the one chirp tells me it's a gasoline engine, which is true, and I don't need to change that. Now I'm going to start the engine with the ignition key. Now I'm going to turn the ignition key off, and the system chirps for the number of ignition start circuits detected, so it did the one that I need. Within 20 seconds of step 5, activate the remote start. The engine is now running, and I'm going to press the brake pedal to shut everything down and save the changes. Now hold up, what just happened so fast and so easy. I don't want you to miss how important this capability really is. So this patent pending vehicle learn mode capability literally handles dozens of setup steps that used to have to be manually done by the installer. Now if you're a DIYer, you're doing this install yourself, you may not even know what some of these settings are going to be. But the great news is vehicle learn mode automatically makes those decisions for you and then programs it on your behalf. So it's not only about saving time, it's about reducing opportunity for human error, because do you know whether you want tack, tackless, or data tack mode for detecting whether the engine's running? Doesn't matter. The system knows which is best and which your vehicle can handle, and then programs it based on that. So that is a huge deal. This saves a lot of time from the traditional install and makes life much easier on you. So I didn't want you to miss out on that point because it was so fast, it seemed like that was normal, but that is not normal. This is an awesome thing that Omega has done with this Excalibur system. It will also take into account installation errors. So we didn't have a whole lot of opportunity for wiring errors because we used that new T-harness. But if you were doing a manual install, let's say it wasn't this vehicle, let's say you decided you liked it so much you want to put it into a different vehicle, which is entirely possible, you may have to do more manual wiring work. The system will actually go through and check your wiring and look for things it expects to see. It may reroute things internally to work with whatever you came up with. That's a pretty huge deal. And in fact, this comes into play in our particular install because if you recall back to a previous video, we actually neglected to install that neutral safety wire. And when I didn't install that, I told you the system's gonna figure out we don't have it and it's gonna skip it. It's this vehicle learn mode process that recognizes there is no neutral safety switch wire and then eliminates it from the requirement. So again, pretty awesome stuff. I just didn't want you to miss it. And if you're a power user and you want to learn more about the details of what's happening in vehicle learn mode, in the description of this video, I'll give you a link to Omega's official YouTube video on this, and they go through it in great detail. So it's really interesting stuff if you're into that sort of thing. So that's it. I went through this real time with you for the first time, and it's a breeze. So that's pretty awesome. So, and now remote start. That's pretty cool. All right, guys, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to start getting into user configurable settings, trying to select options. I'll tell you what the variety of options you can set are, and then also a little bit about the different transmitter functions, how it works, and what type of responses you should expect to get from the vehicle. We're going to go into that in great detail here soon, but for now, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.